discussing my current journey with cancer in this body and the different things that we've done in our lives. And this gentleman said, you know, you should write a book about it. And I thought about it because, you know, my life has just been my life, right? I mean, I never really kind of thought about it as being extraordinary or in any way special or different or anything like that. But actually, you know, as we were talking through some of the parts of my journey, I'd go to see a movie about this. I'd read a book about some of this stuff that we were talking about. So I came up with a better title than we discussed on Friday. We were thinking the book could be called... Anyway, the new title, if you're okay with this, is From Boys Town to Buddhahood. How's that sound? Does that sound like a better title than what we were talking about on Friday? Now, of course, I'm not a Buddha. Of course not. But it's got a certain ring to it. So it entails a little bit of my personal story and then how very unexpected, or even more than unexpected, absolutely there is no way that I would be where I am today if you knew me when I was younger. Apart from being a very angry kid who's ready to fight at the drop of a hat, even people 10 years older than me, I was such an angry kid. I remember fighting my elder brother when I was about 8, and he's 10 years older than me. So he was 18, and I was ready to take him on. I forget what he did, he teased me or something. So I was an angry kid, really angry boy. Anyway, to go forward a little bit, around about 12 or 13, I ended up in a place called Boys Town. It's a town with boys in it. And it's a place this is back in the 1960s. I was born in the 50s. So this is back in the 1960s. And it was at a place at Beaudesert, which is, 2.5 hours or so west of here on the Gold Coast. And there were boys in there from, I think it was 13 till 16 or 17, and basically junior criminals. That's what it was, a place for juvenile delinquents. So, I'd fallen into hanging out with a bad bunch. I was a very sweet and innocent boy. But because of the kids that I ended up hanging out with, we ended up breaking into houses and shops and stealing cars and just doing a few things like that on the side on the weekend when we're not at school. So I think I was in Boys Town for around about 3 years, full of all kind of tough guys. I learned to box when I was in Boys Town. I fought for 7 years, just amateur fights, but I became quite good at it. And I'm leaving out a lot of stuff here because I want to cut to another story. So the friends that I had, being in Boys Town had a huge impact on me. It was run by the Christian de la Salle brothers, Catholic brothers. And there was one of the brothers in there, when I went there in the 60s, his name was Brother Anacletus. From what I understand, Anacletus was one of the first popes in the Catholic tradition. That's my memory. So he was Brother Anacletus. And while we were there, they ended up having a change where they could use their straight names instead of using names of saints and things like that. So we got to know him as Brother Brian. And he was quite a young man relative to some of the other guys there. He's probably only in his 30s, maybe mid to late 30s, although of course we thought he was old because we were 13, 14. And he used to play rugby for Australia. He played for the Australian team, rugby. And he gave that up to follow his, his vocation, is that what it's called? To help other people. And he had a big impact on my life. I could tell that he actually cared for us. He was strong. The boys in there were tough. So it was tough love, but I actually experienced he was someone who actually cared for me. He actually had my well-being in mind. So this touched me deeply. So that's kind of just the beginning of the From Boys Town to Buddhahood kind of thing. There's a person who I experienced cared for me and kind of was trying to move me into a spiritual direction in life. So that, just kind of put that on the back burner for now and how it connects up to other events in my life. So I didn't come out of Boys Town a Buddha or a saint. I still had certain people I hung out with, some other people who were also boxers. And we used to hang out in Brisbane, a place called Redcliffe, Scarborough, down that way, Sandgate. And our main entertainment on Saturday night or Friday night was to go down and pick fights at the pub. So that's kind of what our weekend was about, was to get into all kind of trouble, which we enjoyed. Go a little bit further in my life. Like I said, this is building to something. These are just short little snippets. So in the 1980s, I find myself in Sydney. And through various reasons, I ended up roadieing for a bunch of different bands in the pub rock scene in Sydney in the 80s. Various bands, doing lights and show things. We had a little band called F Troop, but that was nothing. But I primarily roadied for a bunch of different bands, including some quite well-known, lugging things in, setting up lights, different things. So during that period, even though I'd begun a spiritual journey back in the 70s, meditation, Buddhist practices, and yoga even, I kind of got waylaid a bit into what is commonly known as sex and drugs and rock and roll, and as much as possible during this early period of the 1980s. So not exactly, on the straight and narrow spiritually. Anyway, again, cutting forward to various experiences. I went to Asia, I went to Europe, various experiences there. And because of a certain experience I had when I was in the UK, I took up my spiritual life in a more personal and serious kind of way. These certain incidences and experiences, kind of helped me to look at my life and where it was heading. Maybe I was 30 or something at this stage. So I came back to Australia with some determination to actually take seriously, what is important in my life, what the real goal and purpose and meaning to my existence was. So then, again, through because seeking it out, but having the association of some spiritual mentors, some people who I experienced, again, cared for me. And through their guidance and kindness and friendship towards me, I began to experience how spiritual life is something very real. And it is actually what our whole purpose is about. Everything else we leave behind. I remember reading George Harrison talking about, even on his deathbed, but he talked about this beforehand. There is nothing more important in life, nothing. Even though he was a famous guitar player, talented, charismatic, rich guy, he still said there is nothing more important than self and God realization. This is the purpose for our existence here. Everything else is secondary. So I began to experience, again, through association of saintly people, spiritually inclined and spiritually advanced people, that this is actually very real. So then I took up the practice of meditation in a serious way. And I came across the person who is now my spiritual master, my spiritual teacher, my guide, mentor, friend. And through the spiritual influence of my teacher, again, as I said, my spiritual journey grew, deepened, and here I am today, from Boys Town, to trying to share with, trying to live myself a spiritually inclined life, and experiencing the benefit of that, the beauty of that, want to share this with others. So that's the beginning of the story, that if people who knew me back then, I've not always been this saintly, mellow, nice guy that we see before us today, because there has been a transformation. Not a transformation even necessarily of philosophy, because yoga and spiritual life is about a transformation of one's heart, a change of heart, not a change of religion, not a change from this holy book to a different holy book, from this group to a different group. It is about a change of heart and a change of consciousness. That is spiritual life. And we can put whatever label you like on that if it has that effect on our life, then it is worthwhile, whatever label it may have on it. So it is through the impact of meditation, of studying and trying to apply yoga wisdom, and specifically through the association of a saintly person, through the influence of saintly people, and through particularly this practice of mantra meditation in the form of kirtan, which we are doing tonight. The transformative power and beauty of the holy names of the Supreme, of the Divine, which is what these mantras are. They are names of the Supreme Soul. So in this connection, there's a story I remember from the yoga wisdom text that shows, actually there's a number of stories, but I think I'll only have time for one. So there is this great sage known as Narada Muni. Throughout the wisdom text of yoga, the Vedas of India, there is this very famous sage whose life and works and teachings and impact upon others is weaved through various Vedic or yogic spiritual texts. These texts were written down 5,000 years ago. Before that, they were handed down through what is known as Guru Parampara, or from teacher to student, orally. But fortunately for us, they were written down around 5,000 years ago. So Narada Muni one day, he was walking through the forest. He was a mendicant. He was a wandering mendicant, what is known as Parvajakacharya. He has no particular fixed abode. In fact, in modern terms, Narada Muni could be described as a transcendental spaceman. Because of his spiritual nature and potency, he wasn't just confined to travelling horizontally on the planet Earth. It's described that he was able to travel to various universes, to various planets, and have a spiritual impact upon the lives of unlimited spirit living beings in various places throughout the cosmic manifestation. So in this particular incident that comes to mind, that is found in the Bhagavat Purana, Narada Muni was wandering through this forest, and he came across a boar who was pierced with an arrow, and who was struggling. He wasn't killed. He had broken legs and things like that, and this boar was struggling and gasping and in great pain and suffering. So, of course, this touched the heart of a saint. A saintly person is touched by the suffering of others. And as he proceeded on, he saw just in a little distant that there was a deer also who was half killed, who was suffering. His legs were also broken and suffering. So he hears further ahead of him more of these sounds, and he goes forward, and there is a rabbit also half killed, not dead, but with an arrow. So he's, of course, moved by compassion, and he's wanting to know, what is this all about? Who's doing this? So then he sees a little bit inside the forest further off the track. He sees this hunter, all decked out in animal skins and red eyes, and quite a fearful and angry-looking person who has his bow and arrow up and is about to shoot another animal. So because Narada Muni moved towards, where this hunter was, the animals that the hunter was about to shoot all scattered. So the hunter, in anger, turned around to see who did this, who ruined his shot. So he was about to use abusive language to whoever had done that. And he was able to pick up that this person is a saintly person. He was able to experience the spiritual nature and influence of Narada Muni. So he didn't use abusive language, but he was still very disturbed and said, I can see that you are a saint. My dear sir, what are you doing here off the beaten path? Why are you here? You've disturbed, what I was doing. So Narada Muni explained, he said, well, my dear sir, I've seen these different animals who are half killed and who are suffering, and I'm trying to find out what is the cause of this. So the hunter replied, actually quite proudly, yes, it is my work. I have done this. So Narada Muni is asking, why? Why do you do this? And he said, actually, my name is Magrari. My father, who taught me the art of hunting and how to kill animals, only half kill them and let them then die over time. It is my father who has taught me this trade. And my name is Magrari, the enemy of all animals. That was his name. And he was a very fierce person, as you can understand, and quite hard-hearted. He actually said, so Narada Muni asked, why are you doing this? He said, I actually enjoy to see what the animals go through after I have shot them. It actually brings me pleasure to see what they are going through. I've been like this my whole life. My father brought me up. He also did this. So Narada Muni went on to explain that, I'm cutting the story short here. Explain the ramifications of causing suffering to other living beings. He said, due to the law of karma, you should understand that the suffering that you are causing to these innocent animals, you must experience that suffering back upon yourself, lifetime after lifetime. I mean, he didn't say this, but in our Western culture and in the Christian tradition, Christ speaks about as you sow, so shall you reap. So Narada Muni explains this reality of the law of karma and how we must experience back, what we have done in our life, lifetime after lifetime. So Narada Muni, he requested, he said, I know this is your livelihood, this is how you live with your family, is hunting. But my request to you is that you, instead of half killing the animals, that you kill them outright. In this way, it will lessen the suffering that they are going through. And this will also lessen, your karmic burden. So he said, at least my request is that you do that. That's right. Just before this, the hunter, Magrari, wanted to give Narada Muni, because he could see he's a saintly person. And you're supposed to give something, a gift, to saintly people when you have contact with them. So Magrari offered to give Narada Muni any of the skins. He said, come back to my house. I have tiger skins, I have deer skins, I have all kinds of skins, and you can have whatever you want. So Narada Muni said, no, I'm not interested in that, but I have one request, if you will give me this one request. And that's where he requested that you no longer half kill and cause suffering to the animals, that you kill them outright. Because I understand this is your livelihood, but at least do it in this way. So then he also, like I said, went on to explain the nature of karma. So Magrari, in the beginning, became a little fearful. You mean I have to experience back the suffering of all the animals that I've done this to since I've started in my life? And he said, yes, this is the law of karma. So he became a little frightened of his future, that he would have to suffer so much. But he was also influenced by the character of Narada Muni, who was a saint. That saintly character touched his heart. So he asked Narada, what can I do to counteract or overcome this karma or this sin that and the sinful reaction that was coming towards me? And Narada Muni said, I'm very happy to help you. I will help you as much as you like, and I can tell you how you can overcome this. So Magrari said, please, I'll be very grateful. So Narada Muni said, well, there's one requirement, and that is that you break your bow. So Magrari's going, break my bow? But how will I live? I've done this my whole life. I have a family. I have children. If I break my bow. So anyway, he became more influenced, and he had some trust in the saintly nature of Narada Muni, who promised him, do not worry. If you do so, I will arrange it so that you don't have to worry about the upkeep of yourself and your family. I will make sure, I will make arrangements so that all that is taken care of. So Narada Muni broke his bow. He offered himself, his respects, his dandavats at the feet of Narada Muni. And Narada Muni instructed him. And again, I'm cutting the story short. So he is now the student, the disciple of Narada Muni. Narada Muni accepted him as a student, as a disciple, initiated him, and requested that he go home, distribute all of the wealth he had, and then him and his wife to move to the banks of the sacred Ganges and to live a simple life, to practice meditation and sadhana, spiritual practice, specifically centered around the chanting of the Maha Mantra, this mantra that we chant, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. So Narada Muni initiated him to the chanting of these names of the Supreme. He also requested and gave him guidance in various other spiritual sadhana or spiritual practices for him to do. So Mugrari did so, went back home, distributed all his wealth, went and lived very simply. He built a thatched hut on the side of the Ganges and began to practice the sadhana, spiritual practice that his spiritual teacher had given him. So go forward a little bit, and sometime in the future, Narada Muni is passing through this way again. He is with a friend, Pravata Muni, one of his dear friends, also a sage, a Muni. So as they're walking along, Narada Muni said, I have a student, I have a disciple here, and I would like to visit him, if that's okay, while we're near. And of course his friend Pravata Muni said, yes, let's do that. So as they were near Mugrari's thatched hut on the Ganges, Mugrari saw his spiritual master coming from a distance and was very happy and very excited to see his spiritual teacher. So he began to run very swiftly towards Narada Muni. And as he was running along to see Narada Muni, there were many ants that were crossing the path where he was walking, running. So every now and again he would hop and jump, and he would stop and with his cloth gently move away the ants that were on the path so that he didn't step on them. So when they came into contact, Narada Muni asked him what he was doing, and he explained, well, there were ants there and I didn't want to injure them, hurt them in any way, and this is what I was trying to do. So Mugrari welcomed them, put down a mat for them to sit down. He offered them some food. He, as is the tradition in yoga, he washed their feet, offered them, welcoming words, and gave them some food to eat and inquired from them. And they began to chant kirtan, just like we are doing tonight. And Pravata Muni, Narada Muni's friend, noticed that Mugrari, Narada's disciple, as they were chanting, he was exhibiting different ecstasies, spiritual ecstasies, as he chanted the holy names of the Supreme. So Pravata Muni, was saying to Narada Muni that, you are such a touchstone. A touchstone is a gem, a mystical gem that can turn iron into gold. So he described, through your association, this hunter has been turned into gold, spiritual gold. You're a spiritual touchstone. This is the power, the spiritual nature and impact of a saintly person. Touches a person's heart. So there's a change of heart. And also the chanting of the divine names of the Supreme purifies the heart and mind of all the unwanted things that are contaminating our consciousness. So, and just to throw in a little bit here to give you a little more of the story, Mugrari and his wife never had to worry about what they ate, because Mugrari was quite well known as being cruel with all the people around the area. But when he took up spiritual life and became so compassionate and tolerant that his fame spread throughout all the land. So it is the tradition in India to go to visit and have darshan of a saint and to get the blessings of the saint so that they may also have success in their spiritual life. So many people were going to see Mugrari and his wife, and as a tradition, bringing all kinds of fruit and grains and all kind of food and offerings and things like that, to the point where it was so much that Mugrari and his wife could not even eat it. So they were distributing that to other people as well. So the point that came to mind, connecting myself up in this story, of course I am not Magrari or like Magrari, but when I look back on my existence and see what I was like earlier in my life and see how there actually has been some genuine change of heart and of my life, and this is due to association with spiritually advanced people and through the spiritual potency of the holy names of the Supreme, that they can change the heart of any living being and remove not just bad habits and bad character, because these things are unnatural or unwanted in the heart of the living being, who is Satchit Ananda, eternal, full of wisdom and blissful by nature. Even things such as fear, anxiety, so many things which are unwanted are actually removed from the heart of the person who actually hears and chants these divine names of the Supreme and is fortunate enough to have the association of a saintly person. So this is the benefit, this is the outcome of anyone. Each one of us can become a saint. In fact, it is our intrinsic nature. Our heart and mind are polluted by our journey through this material world. We are covered by so many unwanted things. And my spiritual teacher uses a nice example which we'll wrap up on. We are like a spiritual diamond, pure by nature. That is our essence of who we are. And in the same way that a diamond that is deep in the earth is intrinsically valuable, we are spiritually, intrinsically pure, but we are now covered by so much pollution because of our journey through this material existence. These divine names, these holy names, these transcendental sounds remove this pollution from the heart and the mind so that our pure spiritual nature now becomes exhibited. In the same way as if we remove the dirt and the ground, that is covering the diamond, its natural beauty is exhibited. So this is the impact of chanting the holy names of the Supreme. Thank you very much. And there's many other benefits, but these are just tied in today. We can discuss on further Sundays. In other words, there is very much to gain by the practice of this congregational singing of the holy names, and there is nothing to lose except your worries, your fears, your anxieties, and all of these unwanted things. That's the only thing you will lose. Otherwise, it is only a gain. Going to stand up? Yeah. One more thing. I'll pass it on, just tell me.
Radha actually asked Narada to stop singing so much.
That's right. Grari asked Narada Muni when he came, please stop sending so much food. That was his request.
Too much.
Yeah. So all good things will come your way.